everybody, and welcome back to the Hilltop Pillbox here in Abbotsford, British Columbia, Canada. And today we're just going to be showing you some pics and some short videos here and there of our trip to Europe that we took this last March in honor of our 25th anniversary. You just saw the happy couple there and some champagne that we were given by British Airways. And we have our first stop was actually in London, but it was just for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. Then we're up to Edinburgh. I blew the fuse in our the thingy that converts the electricity thingy, so that was fun. I had to take a cab ride to get to where we wanted to go. Of course, everywhere you look there's haggis and even recipes for it. This is our trip up to the Scottish Highlands, and there's lots of castles, just some really just beautiful terrain, and you could just see the tough Scots up there fighting it out with the redcoats. That's a memorial that we stopped at to the soldiers who had fought from that region in World War I and II. And I think that one might have been specific to World War II. The commando units, as you can see there. This was at Loch Ness. That was in a parking stall. I didn't know what it meant. I thought this is where you come lay down. But Robbie Burns, the great poet, is there. And there's my wife and I and Loch Ness in the background. And boy, it was chilly and windy. This is back in Glasgow, and just looking at the sights. This is us just looking at... Actually, not Glasgow. Sorry, that was... that was Glasgow. No, Edinburgh. There's Edinburgh Castle behind us, and get a few pics of that. Really nice. This is the view from the castle of the upper town. But then when you climb the stairs and go into the castle, of course, you got the big gate with the portcullis there, and lots of your typical touristy type pictures we took. But this is the view of... You can see the whole city from up in Edinburgh Castle. That's just to show you a claymore. That's my wife standing there, and that claymore is about 4 feet long. Is the hall, an armory hall in the castle. And just some more pics. This is of where they would put the bad people. This is the prison. It was pretty filthy down there, I'm here to tell you. Tells you what they got for food, and really wasn't a lot. Domino's is about the only distraction you could have down there besides just trying to stay alive. This is the Royal Mile, just off Edinburgh Castle. Adam Smith, the father of capitalism. So I took that and can show that to my students. Just some shots around Edinburgh. Is the train station here that we were going to hop on, and hopped on the high-speed rail to head on down to London. And this is just some of the quaint towns as we rip by at 200 miles an hour. But it was really just a lot of beautiful countryside. Oh yeah, in London, everybody has square bottoms. There you go. SpongeBob would love it there. That was the toilet in our hotel, was a square. So this is just in London now. We stayed in London for a few days. Went and saw the sights. We did the hop-on, hop-off bus. Where you can just get on, get off at all these different stops. We just stayed on because it started to rain pretty heavily, so not a lot we could do about that. And we saw all the sights that we could see as we went around. So, there's that London Eye. We just saw Parliament before that. And, of course, all the bridges going across. And it was really neat for us to be here, because how many times do we see things in pictures? That's the Tower of London, the prison there. The Hung, Drawn, and Quartered, that didn't sound like a good pub to go to, but apparently it's fairly popular. There's Nelson's Monument. That was right by our hotel, so and that's the National Gallery there. I forget who that is. Some important guy. Could have been Wellington, actually. I think it was Wellington. And you got to get a picture of the double-decker buses when you're there. This is the British Museum. We walked up there. Your cat goes to the wrong surgeon, and you end up with that. Mummies. That was on my bucket list. I wanted to see mummies. So I actually have a number of pictures of mummies, but I didn't want to shower you in mummies. So there you go. This is outside of Buckingham Palace, of course. This was about 5-6 kilometers from our place, so we just walked. We walked everywhere that second day. No hop on, hop off for us. And this is just the lane that goes all the way down to that wonderful thing, which I forget what it's called. Nelson's Arch, maybe. This is Harrods, very upscale place to shop, and it's a very expensive everything. Found a shirt in there that was selling for about $450 Canadian, and it was just a shirt, nothing special about it. Yeah, and here we are. We're in the train station now. This is King's Cross, I believe, and we're headed off to Paris, and we end up in Paris. That we did. They had the bullet train too, and this is us doing laundry on our first morning. And while we were doing laundry, we actually got to see what appeared to be a guy get some drugs, and the cops pull him over, and he threw him under the car, and then they searched him, and then when they left, he came back and got it. So that was pretty interesting. I wanted to get involved. My wife wouldn't let me. Probably a good idea. Well, here we are at Versailles. Is the palace grounds at Versailles, and yeah, they need a little bleach or something in there. Lots of algae, but it is an extraordinary place to visit. This palace at Versailles. I actually teach about this in my class all the time, but I'm always talking secondhand. But now I'm able to talk firsthand, and I'll be able to show them some pictures and whatnot. Just you ever want a reference to decadence? This is the place. This is unrivaled as to... This is why the French revolted. Good grief. There's the Hall of Mirrors. And but this is definitely why the French revolted. Like, good night. People are starving, and these people had other people basically do everything but eat the food for them. The l'Arc de Triomphe, of course, and we only could get pics of that driving around. So we walked all over Paris. Like, we must have walked, I don't know how far, and we got to this great big building, and we didn't know what the heck it was. I was taking pictures, and then I saw that. I saw the pyramid, and I went, "Oh, this is the Louvre!" And so that was fantastic. It was a good, funny surprise. The next day, we went and saw the Eiffel Tower, and there we are on a river cruise, just a sightseeing tour for about an hour, and then up we go. There's the Seine River, and yeah, we went all the way up to the top, and stayed up there for about an hour, and watched the lights come on. It was fantastic to watch the transformation. It was a beautiful night. It was warm, very warm actually for March, and we were very blessed with great weather, really, for our whole trip. It was really nice, and you can just see how how vibrant they do call it the City of Lights, and I know every city lights up, but yeah, I really like that picture there. I caught a few beams in the lens flare. So, but then we're off. We rented a car, and we're headed out to the Normandy beaches, and we found ourselves here in Bayeux. And Bayeux was without a doubt our favorite town. Might have some more pics of that later, but then we ended up at Omaha Beach, the museum at Omaha Beach, and what a museum that is. I'm sure if you've been to France, you've been to this place, but I was able to, I just immersed myself in everything. I took over 1,000 images in the different places we went, and I probably took 200 at this place. So much information, all the way down to, what fits into a C-47, right? And you can really get a picture of all these things. Great quotes, and feel free to pause if you want to read these things, but it breaks down hour by hour, by 3-hour chunks, what went on in and around the Normandy beaches in order for the people who were landing to find success as much as they possibly could. And for what it's worth, it really was a successful landing. We know that. There's your LST, dropping off the men in the armor. This is what, the stuff guys would pack around with them. And then I just took a couple of random shots to put in this. Then we got out to the cemetery, and what a beautiful place. You can't help but just be drawn into what you see when you just see row upon row upon row of memorial crosses. This is just a very small chapel right in the middle of the place, and so I went in there and just took some pictures, just a memorial to all the fallen. French are very, very grateful for what the Allies did. Beautiful memorial there, the pond. And it was a beautiful day, as you can see. I'm not much of a photographer, so I know a lot of these are extremely linear and whatnot, but this was a great map of all the units, where they went, the German responses, all that kind of stuff. And I just sat there staring at this stuff for quite a while. And again, just a real tribute to the people who fought there. And then we headed out to the beaches. We had to drive oh no, this place was just a little walk away, and you can see there's still some German fortifications there. Again, if you've been there, you've seen all this, but if not, you can still go see, and you just try to imagine being in there, and the big shells are landing around from the bombardments and the bombings and whatnot, and they're coming, right? And you're trapped, essentially, right? You're trapped, you can't get out. And I couldn't imagine just being stuck in there, right? You feel secure on one hand, but on the other hand, it's just a prison, right? You're just trapped. It's essentially what it is. Now this is the beach. This is Omaha Beach right here, and you can see just how flat it is. It's not like Saving Private Ryan, where there's a great big hill and everything. It's a very gentle sloping beach and grass, and there were machine gun posts and everything all over the place. So this is in the town of Bayeux. This is where we stayed for 3 nights, and it was our favorite town of all. You can see the old walls are there. There is a great museum. They're fantastic. Lots of tanks, lots of equipment just outside, and then inside they have these, like any good museum, you got the biographies of all the main players in the Normandy invasion and the days, the weeks, months following. But they have a lot of real equipment in there. They got your mannequins in there dressed up like whoever would wear it. You got the stories behind some of these things. Obviously, you're going to have your maps and charts giving you all the information that you need to have about the Normandy invasion. Very, very typical. But it was great seeing some of this equipment right up close. I've never seen some of it myself in person. And they don't just do the American stuff. They tilt a hat to everybody who is in that region. Of course, we all know what that is. Kablamo. And I think that's a Hetzer there, I think, if I remember correctly. This is Churchill Crocodile. That's one of my favorite tanks to have in the if you access Nolly's Miniatures tabletop game. But this is back in Bayeux, and just a beautiful little town. So we were walking back from the museum here. It's just a couple of miles back. Just great architecture, great old churches, stone walls, narrow streets. Yes, people drive down these things, and you just go, right? And if you can see, there's no entry there, but people just sometimes just drive, and you just go. And then we drove up the next day out to Pointe du Hoc. This is where the Rangers landed, and we're going to be taking out a whole bunch of heavy guns that could rain fire all the way down the beaches. And when they got there, of course, the Germans had dismantled many of the guns, but there were still some in action, and so the Rangers had quite a fight getting rid of some of those and taking over the area. But the Germans had removed a number of the guns. I never found out why, but again, all this stuff you can go walking through. It had rained quite a bit during the nights. During the days, it was beautiful again, like I say, but at night it was very, very wet. So underneath here, a lot of them were filled with water. And then the next day, we drove up to Juno Beach, the Juno Beach Center. And it's a beautiful museum dedicated to the Canadians and some Brits and some French who landed on Juno Beach. Lots of great stuff. And as a Canadian, of course, my heart was really in it, and of course my wife, she enjoyed all this stuff as well. Um, but it's got the thing I really loved was all of this stuff that was seen by everybody every day in Canada during the war. So there's these movies they'd show on, like the clips they'd show on not on TV, but in a film. Like you go see a movie and they'd start out with this stuff. William Stevenson, A Man Called Intrepid, one of the best books I ever read about World War II. Highly recommend it. Worst Job Ever. That's your sappers going out trying to find the mines. Of course, communications are very, very important. And then here we have some of the German entrenchments and hard points in and around Juno Beach. Now, I don't know if you know much about Juno Beach, but the Canadians had got the largest advance in. This is Juno Beach here. They advanced in the furthest of any of the Allied troops that day. And I've had some people say, oh, it's probably because they didn't have much to fight against. And that's not exactly true. In fact, the Canadians got a whole bunch of anti-tank guns brought with them because they knew that the Germans were going to hit that sector. And hit them they did. They hit them with the 22nd Panzer Division and came at them and threw everything they could at them. So the Canadians took on almost par percentage-wise casualties that Omaha Beach did. The next day we drove all the way up to Dieppe. That's the last few pictures here. And Dieppe, very special place for me. This is, if you look at my avatar, it's Captain Douglas Gordon Purdy. He died about 50 feet off the beach in the water when his tank drove into the water and did not float like it was supposed to, and it sank right down in. And this is the grave site. It's just beyond town a little ways, dedicated to the Canadians and some Brits who had died at Dieppe. Mostly Canadians, though. About 950 Canadians died in just a few hours out of about 4,800, I believe. That's pretty hefty losses. We got to look in a book to find out exactly where he was buried. And there it is. That's his grave there, Captain Douglas Gordon Purdy of the Calgary Tank Regiment. And so we had brought some flowers out to lay at the grave site. And that was a tough moment for both of us. This is just behind our hotel was a museum dedicated to the Dieppe raid. Didn't have all the money that a lot of these places do, but this museum did itself really proud. Tons and tons of stuff. Plus, we got to talk to somebody. He led us around for a while, and I found out he actually fought in the Falkland War. So he was telling me some good stories of Brit living in Dieppe now. So he had some interesting tales about that. These are just some German fortifications up on the hill, up by the castle. I think it's called a chateau up in Dieppe, looking over. And then, of course, we go walking around the town for a few hours, and we walked a lot. We probably walked like 150K in the time that we were there in France. This is Dieppe, just beautiful. There's a church on the far side of the harbor. And this is the beach here. And here's just a short video clip. Dieppe. Yeah, so just where you saw that last little bit was where he actually died, right off the beach. So after our 3-day stay in Dieppe, we headed over to Amiens, which is over by the Belgian border. That's a public toilet, and when nature calls, you gotta answer. And I'm pretty sure I'm about the 1,000th tourist to take a picture there that day. This is a church. That's not a church. The other one was a church. That's where we got our COVID testing done, just out on the street. And we had to get that done so we could get back to Canada in a couple of days. This is the Vimy Ridge War Memorial, and this has been on my bucket list for a long, long time. This was built shortly after World War I by the French as a memorial specifically to Canada. And it is a monstrous edifice. And I talk a lot, right? I talk a lot. if anybody knows me, it's like getting me to shut up is a real challenge. But anytime I was at these memorials, at the grave sites, at these other places, what do you say? You just have to take it in. These are trenches that have been kind of refurbished a little bit from World War One. There's some German trenches, some British trenches, Canadian trenches. You saw some real dents in the ground, though. That's original concrete there. Those things that look like sandbags are actually they're concrete, but they were poured into sandbags, and then they ripped the sandbags away, so they actually have the texture. These are shell craters from over 200 years ago, and that sign's just telling you, yeah, there's unexploded ordnance out there, so stay out of there. There are some little... So this is a much more modest grave site, no less beautiful, no less picturesque, of Givenchy Road. So there's 111 soldiers, Canadians specifically in this one, who perished in the first little bit of Vimy Ridge. This is dedicated to them, and I think some of the men's remains were taken back to Canada, because there's not 111 graves here, but it's dedicated specifically to the freeing of Neuville. And Neuville was taken on the very first day of the fight for Vimy on April 9th, 1917. And unfortunately, just like at the Canadian, or the Commonwealth number 2, the Canadian number 2 cemetery that we were just at, which is located just over there, the cemetery register, there's no pen. So we've been unable to leave our thoughts here, which is unfortunate. We've been really blessed with beautiful weather, though, to see this. And it's funny how the trees, I don't know if this was planned this way, but if you look at the trees, they all seem to be leaning eastward. It looks like they're leaning towards the job of going up Vimy Ridge. So here's just a little note. This is from the Givenchy Road Cemetery. This private here, W.H. Muldrew, William Harold Muldrew, it's from Red Deer, Alberta, and so the students at Lindsay Thurber High School in Red Deer, which I know, and I know them and their football program quite well. I used to coach against them and used to ref them. They obviously put together a commemorative plaque, as he was a student at Lindsay Thurber back in the day, and he died in 1917. Now he might be a relative of some of the students, I'm not sure. Could have been a student at the school. I'm not sure how long Thurber has been around, but I thought that was pretty cool. And further to my comment here, it looks like all the trees, like every single one of them, is leaning that way. And if we look over here, look at these trees, they all seem to be leaning this way. Even though the wind is actually blowing against us right now, it's blowing in our faces right now, but they're all looking towards the memorial. And I just thought that was a pretty interesting observation. Yeah, so those cemeteries, we visited quite a number around the area. There's the Commonwealth one, and lots of Canadians in here, some Brits, some Australians, and New Zealand, I believe I saw some. They all kind of blend together after a while. You just know that it was a massive team effort from everybody in a free nation, basically saying none of that. That's just my lovely wife and I just on our way back, and here you go, and we are done. So thanks for watching. Take care.